Hey, everybody. Happy Halloween. Charlie Boehm has graciously agreed to join me for a quick one here as the nation gears up for trick-or-treating. Charlie, how are you? Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here. I've got a fresh cut, got the Halloween costume laid out.
What are you going to be?
Let's do this. My wife and I are going to do brain rot memes, AI slot memes. So I'm going to be I forget the name of it, but it's the shark that's wearing running shoes. I'm wearing a shark suit and running shoes, and she's ballerina cappuccino. So
Okay.
we'll see if anyone gets it.
Nice. Yeah. It's a crapshoot a little bit, right? But it'll be good either way. I don't think.
Well, as you will soon discover, my kid's 11. She's starting in first year of middle school, and you get into these tween things that are like it's not full high school, but it's a next level up from grade school for sure. So
in terms of like costumes or how they feel about costume, yeah,
like just like beginner teen stuff, like socializing and independence, and then like the memes change a little bit.
Yeah.
Been in a big 6-7 phase. It's really,
dude, 6-7. What exactly does that mean? They were saying that in my daughter's third grade classroom too.
It's insane. It's a lot. It's like, I'm sure there's podcasts have been made about this alone, but it's like a rap lyric related, I believe, was in reference to LaMelo Ball's height. And then kids thought the way the name of the artist escapes me, but
is it like Doop Doop or something?
It's a Chicago rapper, and I can't believe I'm blanking on this because I spent significant time educating myself on this cultural phenomenon, and he draws it out, so it's 6-7. So that's like the kids do it. If you say anything that could be linked to anything adjacent to those two numbers, you'll have a room full of tweens screaming it.
Okay.
It's so bad that one of my friend's kids' schools banned the phrase, told the kids to stop saying it. So they started saying yellow mustard instead, because yellow has 6 letters and mustard has 7 letters. That was their workaround.
Awesome. Kids are awesome. Way to go, kids. Okay. Let's start with the absences in Europe, start overseas, start with the absences. So Pulisic, Weah, Jedi, and Tillman all listed as out through mid-November on FOTMob. I mean, your mileage may vary there, but they're all out for the medium term and likely going to miss camp, the next camp. Johnny still not back on the bench for Atletico Madrid, although I think he's getting close. And now we understand this morning Richards has a calf injury, a minor one, and Glasner is disappointed in the USMNT's handling of him on the international break. So Richards sat while Crystal Palace spanked a second choice Liverpool side 3-0 at Anfield in the middle of the week.
Yeah, and it's something to watch here because Glasner spoke out in some detail about his complaint with the way that the USMNT staff managed it. So kind of interesting there. And then the other thing to note here, I guess, is that the Eagles have cooled off a bit. They're on I don't know if it's still a winless skid, but they're struggling, I think, at this moment to capture the heights of last season, and we have to see. It certainly seems like Chris remains central to the project, though.
Yeah, he hasn't played great since the international, basically starting with the international break, but yeah, he's got a lot of cred there. Noki Banks, another center back we're watching, didn't play in Augsburg's 1-0 loss to Bochum in the Pokal after a rough one on the weekend. They host Dortmund this afternoon, kickoff in under 2 hours. So we'll find out where he stands, at least for the moment, shortly. And then, maybe the big news of the week, Reyna. This is not the big news, but we'll get to it. Reyna didn't make it on the field for Gladbach as they beat Karlsruhe in the Pokal 3-1. Scally came on as a 90th minute sub. But, the bigger news is the AP interview that Reyna gave. He was asked if he'd handled things differently if given another shot at the 2022 World Cup. What did he say, Charlie?
Maybe in certain ways, but I'm not just going to sort of sit here and take all the blame for something that was made out to be completely my fault, which I believe it wasn't, and also my family's too. At the end of the day, I was just upset that, I wasn't really playing. I was playing at Dortmund. I thought that I wanted to play at the World Cup, and ultimately in the end, I didn't do that. And that's really what it stemmed from. Slight Slight note, fact check here. To say that he was playing at Dortmund was perhaps a bit arguable because, as the AP helpfully reminded us in this week's coverage, the last time Gio Reyna played 90 minutes in a league soccer game was March 2022, which is already several months before the World Cup. So I'm never surprised when Reynagate pops back up into the discourse. In this case, I'm quite surprised that Reynagate is back in the discourse years later because of Gio Reyna talking about it in this interview in a way that I think could have been handled better or perhaps more smoothly. Could we say, Bells?
Yeah. I think, I mean, everybody's got their opinions on this. I just think, I guess I'll say for sure, I suspect this is not going to sit well with Pochettino if he's educated himself about the situation. And I mean, anybody who has to say sorry a lot in life, like me, just say you're sorry. Just say I should have handled it differently instead of lawyering for yourself.
And your family, and you, I wouldn't have even been expecting an apology here. You could simply say, I'm looking forward. I'm all about the World Cup in 2026, not the World Cup in 2022. And that would have been an eminently defensible, perhaps even intelligent, clever answer. And here we are. I don't want to put too much weight in a few words and in one small tidbit of what I'm sure was a much longer interview, but it just raises questions about where he's really at. And there's already questions about where he's at on the pitch. And now there's more about general off pitch comportment as well. So,
and the question is, I mean, the way I like to think of it now is he is so talented. On a pure sporting merit, I would want to see him on a World Cup roster, even if he can only play 30 minutes a game. But if he brings with that, a certain level of intransigence and difficulty to work with, chaos, then I can imagine a coach like Mauricio Pochettino saying it's not worth it. So it's too bad. It's too bad.
The great irony is that, I'm sorry to talk over you, but the great irony for me is that he needs a coach, maybe multiple coaches to believe in him, to show a little faith, I think. And the last one to do that was Greg Berhalter.
Mm-hmm.
And we have no idea whether Pochettino has anything remotely like the level of interest and commitment that Greg Berhalter had in him and his success.
Yeah, lifelong friends, those families, as we all know. I still think Reyna is probably the most talented player in our pool, and I still think there's a decent chance he'll make it somehow. But this doesn't seem like a move in the right direction. We'll see. To the action from the middle of the week. So let's start with Eunice, because he got his first minutes since October 4th. A cameo off the bench late in a 1-1 draw with Milan. I mean, his first league minutes. He played as an advanced midfielder, looked fine, had a chance to turn and poke home a game winner in the 88th minute off a cutback from just off the near post, had his shot deflected up and over. But no big mistakes, though, which I think is important, and he looked capable. So I'm taking that as a positive. Atalanta got a 1-1 draw, like I said, with Milan.
Does he get the call from Poch?
Fitty. I don't know. What do you think?
I hope so. I'm so curious to see what they could do with that skill set in that box midfield that's taken shape over the last couple windows.
Yeah. I think on sporting merit, he should be there too. And even if he's not playing a ton for Atalanta. Wes is playing a ton, started under the new manager, Massimo Brambilla, went 90, looked, I thought, really good. Repeatedly the key player in a slick combination through that Udinese defense. He keyed the play that led to the penalty at the end. He did have his, customary 3 or 4 errant passage, which is par on the course, but par for the course. But overall, he was a straw that stirred the drink, and I think he's probably, if Brambilla is gonna, if he watched that game and decides to bench him, I'd be shocked. I think he's gonna be back in the starting lineup for the foreseeable future. So that's great. I think it's great for Wes. He also still looks so serious, clean shaven, not goofing around out there. Something's really shifted in him.
Igor Tudor is gone, but perhaps he left a mark on young Wes.
Yeah.
I think back all the time to what he said in that last interview he gave with the TNT crew. I think it was after the second friendly of the last window, or maybe it was the first game. Talking about how this is the first summer he's felt comfortable with his shirt off at the pool. It sounded like a guy who's probably unfairly been hit with body image issues in the cutthroat world that he lives in, despite performance on the pitch. Clearly got heavy messaging along those lines from Tudor over the summer, and put in the work. I think he's always putting in the work in those preseasons, but it does feel different this time around.
Yeah. I gotta say as an aside too, it's so fun to listen to that Juve home crowd sort of in conversation with the play on the field, because they express disapproval almost as much as they express approval. And it's like this, it really is. It's kind of like a conversation where, like, is the play up to par? And if not, then you're going to hear it from the crowd. Not jeers so much, but just like kind of a sigh, a very loud collective sigh from the crowd when a pass isn't, when a pass is misplaced, or there's a poor decision made or something. So it's really fun to listen to. I was watching on Y Scout, which trims out the commentary from somehow, I think probably for copyright reasons. And yeah, it's really something.
Culture, baby.
I know.
Culture.
I know. Yeah.
And we'll get to this in a minute, but there was I'm always really encouraged when I see signs of something in that genre developing here in the US. It's obviously something that happens at the club level, and there are places in MLS, and I'm sure in USL as well, but I'm most focused on MLS, where you see that level of connection. And there was something similar in Cincinnati, what I thought was one of the better games of the first round of playoff fixtures, the Hell is Real game between Cincinnati and Columbus. And Pat Noonan talked about how the crowd at TQL Stadium in Cincy was like, it was that tactile feeling. And even when things don't go well, you kind of can hear with the audio team on the broadcast has their act together, right? You hear that sigh, that collective exhalation, right? When maybe the final ball isn't right, or
yeah,
it gets blocked or whatever, but it's so cool. And it's those little signposts on our way to being a true soccer powerhouse.
I love to hear it. So that's a game you wrote about. I mean, we can talk about it now since we're on the topic. Was it that there was some criticism from the crowd as things weren't going well? That's what Noonan talked about.
No, he was talking about the backing that they got. He was praising the crowd, and he had. I wrote a couple of pieces both before and after the game about it, because it is the highlight fixture of these 3-game round 1 series, to have a rivalry game like this, to have two really good teams with really good stadiums and fan environments play each other, not just twice in the regular season in these derbies, and now there's potentially as many as 3 playoff games. I mean, it's fairly unprecedented. And he talked about before the game, Noonan did, about the fans are what make this game. And there's enough proximity. There's overlap in the fan bases, because like Crew people will tell you that a lot of those Cincy soccer folks were Crew fans before they got their own team. Since he came into, kind of used an Open Cup upset of the Crew back in 2017 to help make their case for getting into MLS. And now there's already this history. It's only 8 years now. It's all still very young, but there's layers of history and banter, and the stadiums are about 100 miles apart, so it's easy to do an away day. I mean, there's even been competition in the context of the USMNT, right? When the 2-0 mystique broke in Columbus, they moved that game down the road, which stung in a certain way for Columbus folks. And so the home field advantage is always big in MLS, particularly in the playoffs. Only one lower seeded away team got a positive result, one in the first round of these best of 3 games. And the Columbus Cincy game was really interesting in terms of the tactical battles, the quality of play. One Malte Monson of the Crew said it was a high level game. Even he was conscious in the run of play of the ideas, the sort of chess match of the two coaches trying to spot weaknesses and vulnerabilities and make changes in the run of play and find the matchups. And it was a good game.
Do you feel like that's, I mean, so I've watched a lot of baseball playoffs in my life, and there's, the difference between a baseball game in like late August and a playoff game. I mean, unless it's a game in late August that's like in a title race or something, it's just so different. Is there something akin to that with these playoff games right now?
I do think so, especially in the stadiums that are full or close to full and have that, the type of fans or the type of local culture that encourages that. It just feels different. And this is now part of the rhythm and the story of MLS is everybody feels in the air when you get into the stretch run in the playoffs. It's getting cooler, right? Fall's arrived. There's an edge to things. There's a collective anticipation that you can feel in those stadiums where everybody's tuned in, and it is different. And we can have a whole debate. I know there's always a debate about whether the playoff format undervalues the regular season, and what do European leagues that don't have playoffs get from every game having that sort of intensity to it. Obviously that's the goal you want to get to, but MLS also reflects the North American terroir, right? That we do playoffs here, we do postseason tournaments, and it just feels different. And it's the downside of it is that we're going to see USMNT players, Diego Luna, Matt Turner, whose seasons are already done, and they will be sitting for months now because they're not in the playoffs. And then there's a good chance Tim Ream is done if they don't get a result in New York City this weekend. Charlotte FC are out, and that's bad, right? And especially now that we know that there's no January camp happening this winter, so there's issues there. But I think that a playoff run can do a lot for individual players, and will definitely have some value for some guys in the pool this fall.
Okay. Well, let's get more into it. But first, real quick, in Ligue 1, Tanner came on in the 68th minute, midweek, up 3-1 over Paris FC, and kind of presided over the second 2/3 of a bit of a bottle job by Lyon. They dropped the points. They end up drawing 3-3. Second goal, not his fault. I mean, he was great on the ball as usual. Second goal was not his fault, but I am kind of pinning the third one on him a little bit for a lack of recognition that an orange shirt was running free at the top of the box, and he's just kind of trotting along 15 yards away, kind of watching the ball, focused on what's happening down in the corner. The cutback comes, the guy shoots, it's blocked, and then it's kind of a miracle. It like deflects up and over the keeper into the only spot where he can't save it. But, you'd like to see him be a little more locked in there. And he has made a lot of progress in that front, but, got to call balls and strikes, huh? And Lyon is still tied for third in the table, just behind PSG and Monaco. So their season is still a lot to play for. And then Balogun scored a goal in a 5-3 win over Nantes. And, it was a nice goal. Put it through the 5-hole on a breakaway. Wasted another breakaway, 1v1 with the goalkeeper by blasting it way over, and blasted another one over after beating 2 defenders up the left side and calling his own number. I would say he was a little below his usual level in possession. Doesn't matter. He's the striker for the U.S. right now for me. Let's take a break. Come back and really talk more about MLS. If you want to skip the ads, join the Patreon. The link is in the show notes. You also, if you join as a $5 subscriber, you get the clip notes that mostly Vince makes, which are these really detailed highlight packages at the end of the weekend and also after every USMNT game. So think about it. We'll be back.
You want the clip notes.
Yeah, they're good. Back in a second. And we're back. a lot could be decided. I mean, you already kind of gave us the broad strokes, but I guess Inter Miami, Vancouver, and LAFC and their global stars are looking to close the deal on Nashville, FC Dallas, and Austin FC respectively. What are you thinking about looking for in those games?
Yeah, there's a distinct pack of favorites that took the right first steps in their first matches. Inter Miami have had another season of telenovela ups and downs, and but their main man Lionel Messi is Golden Boot winner, put up absurd numbers, and was absolutely devastating down the stretch, and is has the Golden Boot and is probably going to win a second straight league MVP award, and looks motivated, fit, and maybe a little pissed off in terms of the trophies they haven't claimed this year, and there's just one left. And while they are not the top seed, they are looking like a tough out for certain. So shout outs to BJ Callahan. He had the unenviable task of taking a Nashville team that had gotten just blown out in the second half of their decision day game against Miami, and then had to turn them around and get ready for a 2 or 3 game series against that very same Miami team a few days later. They tried to park the bus and tighten things up in leg one, and it didn't really work. Didn't work, and Miami tore them up pretty good. Now there's no aggregate involved here, so they can change the story if they go out and play the best ball they're capable of at Geodis Park on their home ground this weekend. But it's looking tough for BJ and that crew. Good season for them with Open Cup, but they've got work to do now against Miami. And then out west, Vancouver is the story, and MLS watchers will know that is not a sentence that you're used to hearing at this time of year.
Yeah.
But Vancouver Whitecaps, despite not being the first seed, and we'll get to the first seed in the West in a moment, but they are looking extremely good. They've been almost perfect. I think they've only lost one game since Thomas Muller arrived, and despite having crazy injuries, all the challenges that they've had to overcome this year, they are playing extremely well right now, and didn't allow a shot. FC Dallas's expected goals in the first game of the series was 0.00.
Wow.
It was much more one-sided than a 3-0 final scoreline would indicate. And national team watchers will not be surprised to hear that Sebastian Berhalter was doing all his usual stuff, running the show in central midfield. So they're looking ferocious, and if they advance, as they are widely expected to do so, with a win in Texas this weekend, they will probably play LAFC in the next round. LAFC had a little bit of a tougher time with Austin. Another familiar face, Nico Estevez, has got kind of surprisingly down the back half, because things looked real messy in Austin in the first half of the season, but they've figured things out. Even with somehow Brandon Vasquez's ACL tear simplified things for them, I guess, because they've been a limited kind of team, defensive oriented, not super interested in possession for attacking sake, but they mirrored LAFC shape wise and made things much more difficult for Denis Bouanga and Sun Hung Min than many of the LAFC victims have been since the South Korean arrived back in August. So that was a tight one. Ended up being a 2-1. LAFC had to come back, but they too can sweep if they get a result. But then I have to point out they lost on their last trip to Austin, and Austin was actually beat LAFC in both regular season meetings. So it's not over for Nico and co, but they're up against it. So yeah, it's those are your clear favorites. Although the Cincy side we talked about, if they can get past Wilfred Nancy and the crew, they are also a force to be reckoned with. Despite having kind of limped through the season at times, Cincy have not always looked great. They've had a ton of 1-goal victories, but they too are looking like a battle-tested group. And Miles Robinson, at the heart of that 3-man defense, has been a big part of it. He was quite good against the crew in leg one, and has that little bit of nastiness, that little bit of arrogance that you want from a dominant defender like him in his locker at the moment.
Is that the kind of defensively sound but boring team that's going to make a run here in this tournament?
You would have said Charlotte, I think, a few days ago, but they kind of laid an egg on Tuesday night
At
in full
home to
crowd.
NYCFC, right?
Yeah, they're statistically the best team at home in the regular season. I haven't been down to a Bank of America Stadium game yet, but I'm told it's a vibe. They get big crowds, they're spirited crowds, but the team fell behind and just couldn't do it. They were very much missing Wilfred Zaha, who picked up a really ill-advised red card in the regular season finale, and he is the straw that stirs the drink for them. Big miss. They couldn't create much of anything. NYCFC were outstanding defensively and got their goal. Caught Charlotte's back line napping. Alonso Martinez, the Costa Rican, with a really classy finish, and that was all they needed. So now, the Dean Smith, incredibly, just minutes before we started recording, I was reading that he kind of groused a bit, I guess, about how the crowd wasn't all that, the home crowd, which was sort of not a great look maybe for the manager in this moment, who needs that crowd to show up if they can somehow get a win on the baseball park in the Bronx this weekend and take the series back home. So the thing with Charlotte is, again, with Ream at the back, they've been generally quite organized defensively, but they don't take big risks. They depend on Zaha to produce moments of magic that set up Idan Toklamati for good looks in the box. And without Zaha, there just wasn't much there. And they've got to prove that they can do what's necessary at the attacking end to make all that defensive structure useful at this time of year.
In Yankee Stadium, which is kind of hard to do, I guess.
It is not a good place to play.
So Christian Roldan and the Sounders, they got to bounce back against Minnesota after losing in penalties. I know Roldan missed his penalty. What else happened? That's probably not the most important thing that happened in the game, but
Minnesota United. If you've paid any attention to them or what they've done since Eric Ramsey took over, they are the most possession-hating team in MLS. They are completely uninterested in having any kind of volume of the ball. They are happy to defend in Canadian international Dane St. Clair's lap. I think he's probably going to be the goalkeeper of the year. I don't think they've awarded that officially, but I get this distinct sense that he's going to win that award. They trust him, and they are very dangerous on the break, though. Ever since another Canadian, Tanya Oluwaseyi, got sold to Villarreal over the summer, they've been much less of a threat going forward.
Yeah.
But they still do have they do have good players in transition, and they love their long throws. Another hot topic in the discourse of late. And the 0-0 snoozer kind of. I mean, Seattle took the initiative, did everything they needed to get the away win, except finish. The final touch was just lacking. And then in penalties, you're always going to like DSC's chances, and so it went. But I think of anybody who lost in the first leg, the Sounders probably have the most to feel good about, because they can go home where they're quite good, another tough place to play, and maybe dictate terms and maybe get a little bit more quality in front of the net. Jordan Morris was pretty good for a striker who didn't score, and I think if they go for it, this is a group that's been in these situations a lot. So I have a feeling that one's going to go right to the finish, but they've got to make that happen at Lumen Field.
Okay. All right. And then 2 more games, I think, to talk about. Chicago versus Philly in Bridgeview on Saturday at 5:30 Eastern time. This will be game 2. Philly's up 1-0 after another penalty shootout win last weekend. It was 2-2. This is actually a pretty exciting game, right? Like, lots of goals. And Jack Elliott hits a beauty in stoppage time against his old club in his old stadium.
No celebration.
Yeah.
Surely
they must have treated him really well, sending him out the door.
They didn't give him the money he wanted in free agency, but other than that, I mean, surely there's thousands of listeners who want to hear about how the Greg Berhalter project is going in Chicago, right? Let's dive in.
I mean, it is kind of it's one of our bits. So,
well, listen, all that talk while he was national team coach about how his system and his mindset works better in a club situation than a national team situation, I think you could say that's being borne out. 1 year in, they're in the playoffs. They've already won a playoff game. I was writing a story about this that ran today. the green shoots of revival are breaking the soil up there in Chicago. They've got a new stadium on the way that's going to open in 2028. They're actually playing their kids. They got some talented homegrowns, several of whom are in the national team pool who
Where is
are
the
balling out.
where is the stadium going to be? Is it going to be downtown?
Downtown. It is on the Chicago River. It's in a part of a big redevelopment project called the 78, which is just sort of south and a little west of downtown.
Okay.
So it's a great spot. This is great work, and they can't get in there soon enough because their primary home is nominally Soldier Field, but at this time of year, not only do they have to schedule around the Bears home games, they are getting booted out to SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeview for a second straight game on Saturday because a rugby match is happening at Soldier Field. So the New Zealand All Blacks and Ireland are playing at Soldier Field. So it's Bridgeview, and not ideal for the players, but they're pretty comfortable at Bridgeview. They're going to try and ambush Philly. And I thought it was very interesting too when Berhalter spoke to media Thursday. He said, looking at Philly, which is half the age of Chicago Fire as an organization, and he said, when you go in that stadium, you can tell there's rituals, there's traditions. People know, what the vibe is and what things are like. And we're not there yet, but that's where we're trying to get to. So it's an interesting series, 1 versus 8. And it's, Berhalter looking at an established MLS contender and figuring out how he can get the Fire there. And, the vibes are out there. It's going well for him.
It's like they made it to a penalty shootout. I mean, it was kind of it took a screamer at the end of regulation, but could have easily come away with a win here.
Well, Greg went to muck up the midfield and try and make it difficult for Philly to do their car crash, counter pressing transitions game, and it worked for 80 minutes or so. It was scoreless, and Philly looked confused. It was, unfortunately for the athletes among us, it meant that Brian Gutierrez was a casualty of that tactical move and was on the bench, but came off later. And the game opens up like crazy, like a lot of MLS games do in the last 10 minutes. Philly get 2. It looks like everything's going to go according to chalk, and then the Fire come out of nowhere with 2 goals of their own and take it to PKs, and then they lose in the shootout. But they feel good about that. I mean, again, considering they're on short rest, they had to beat Orlando in the wildcard game at midweek. Considering they're possibly their best player, Philip Zinkernagel, picked up an injury in the warmups, so he couldn't play, and he's a doubt for this weekend's game. Considering all that, they made a real go of it. And it's funny too, because the Fire, one of the teams that had them, I don't know if they finished tops in this, but their games had some of the most goals in MLS. So it was, and again, in a kind of a contrast to some of the staid, plodding USMNT performances we saw at the end of the cycle with him. They love to attack. They love to get forward, and their defense is deceive. And it's just like it's a neutral's favorite kind of situation. And he was joking that's who they were in the end, even though they kind of clogged things up for 80 minutes. It still wound up being a shootout. And if you're just looking to tune in and get a little bit of a spectacle, I think maybe Fire Philly is one to check out this weekend.
Yeah. And then I should mention Guti, he got in a scrap, and then that ends with his teammate getting a red card towards the end there, Orahel. And
another talented homegrown kid. Big loss for them, but one to watch for sure in the long run in terms of the player pool.
Okay. And then Guti and Frankie Westfield, who came on as a sub for Philly, both nailed their penalties. Indiana Vasilev scored a goal. Yeah. So lots of sort of USMNT adjacent fellas involved there. Portland versus San Diego. They play in Portland on Saturday at 9:30 Eastern time. San Diego won the first game 2-1. Nice assist from Luca Bombino. San Diego with lots of chances in this game, just didn't put them all away. Still got the win. Do you think San Diego's gonna, like, are they a real? I know they're the 1 seed, right? But
yeah,
are they like? Can they beat LAFC in a playoff?
That is the question. There's always doubts about expansion teams or young, kind of unproven squads in the playoffs. Like, do you have difference makers? Do you have the collective understanding of what's required and what this stage is like. So they are not a highly vaunted number one seed. But, and again, I just told people to go check out the Chicago Philly game. But if you haven't watched, just watch San Diego FC, watch one of their matches if you can, because they have one of the clearest identities in the league. They're so progressive. They're so intricate and organized with the way they build. They want the ball. They take risks with it. The risks are built into it. Portland pegged them back and turned what could have been a blowout into a kind of a tight game in the end, just from a transition moment where the ageless Diego Chara created a turnover in midfield and broke things open. But there was no doubt as to who the better team was here. And it's the way that almost every San Diego FC game has gone this year. They dictate the tempo. They want to beat you with the ball. They're good in other sectors of the game too, but it's striking to see a coach that's climbed the ladder in the U.S. developmental pyramid to this point and is collected a bunch of youth national team kids who are trying to climb the ladder. Mm-hmm. They are trusting young kids on a level that I've truly never seen before in this league. I mean, they are at or past where FC Dallas were at their peak with the Pepe Ferreira era kind of play your kids at FCD. I mean, San Diego don't even have academy classes. They will not have kids coming through for several years because they're starting at a very young age with the current academy year that's just begun. But they're going and getting guys like Luca Bambino and they're drafting kids there. They're playing them. I mean, and these guys are they're half of their back line is not old enough to buy a beer in a bar. But they still control games and give much older veterans everything they can deal with and more. So I think they're going to get past Portland. This is a flawed Portland team. I don't know where San Diego will go from here. But again, looking at MLS from a USMNT standpoint, you've got to be intrigued and encouraged by what's happening down there.
All right. And also shout out Tyler Heaps, the GM, right?
They play the kids at executive level too. He's the youngest by far in his job in MLS.
The less famous half of the couple that he's in, his wife is Lindsay Horan Heaps. So, hey, I think that's it, right? You got anything else?
I think so. Actually, I'll toot my own horn for a second here.
Yes, please.
One of my favorite conversations that I had this year was with Tyler Heaps about the San Diego FC project. And he told me a great story about, and this is a guy who got that job through, he got European jobs by virtue of being a kind of a number cruncher and a whiz kid with US soccer. And, but we talked about his childhood, and he has a really interesting backstory about how he played D3 ball, grew up in Minnesota, had to pay his own way through the pay to play environment. He told me a great story about how he and his mom would go and sell hot dogs. They'd sell concessions at Twins games and University of Minnesota basketball, football games and stuff. And that was how he paid his youth soccer fees. And he has a pair of, again, the sickos know about the Nike Mercurial Vapors, right? This kind of iconic cleat that's been around for ages. And he has a pair of those over his, on a display shelf in his office. So I was doing a Zoom with him, and he tells the story of how, whenever he wanted the new Vapors, right? Landon Donovan, Cristiano, all these guys have worn these. As a kid, his mom would say, all right, take out the notebook. And mom was tracking his soccer costs in this notebook. And so she's like, all right, that's going to be 4 games, right? So that was, he made like $40-50 a night at the Twins game, slinging hot dogs. So it's like, all right, next pair of Mercurials, I got to work 4 games, nice. Get the $200 together. And I love that. And I think it'll resonate for a lot of the listeners.
I know we can all look it up, but where did he play D3 soccer? Was it in Minnesota?
Ooh. Yes, Bells. He went to Augsburg.
Okay. I know that college, right? I used to play some amateur games on their field right downtown between St. Paul and Minneapolis. Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, check out what Charlie's writing for MLSsoccer.com. He is the national writer for that website, and appreciate him being here with us. Everybody have a good weekend. Enjoy the time out on the streets. Get to know your neighbors. We'll see you.